Hello and welcome to the RPG Blender, where we give lesser played games or forgotten settings the roll of the dice they deserve. I'm your host, Game Master George, thrilled to bring you the first in our new line of videos. We've just concluded the first arc of our ongoing cross-system actual play podcast using the system Paranoia. So today we'll be starting a series discussing this edition of Paranoia, outlining the rules of the game as well as some tips and tricks I've discovered to help give the session more life. For this series, we'll be focusing on four main aspects of the game: setting, character creation, running the game, and creating a mission. In each section, I will cover the details outlined in the core book, as well as some variants you can spring on your players to keep them from getting too comfortable. Now, a word of warning: knowledge of the rules of this game is treason, so this video is meant for people looking to run this system only. Players, you're only going to cheapen the experience for yourself if you try to learn it all ahead of time. For that reason, this video is classified at ultraviolet clearance, so those not wishing to commit treason against the Alpha Complex should click away now. With that out of the way, welcome troubleshooters to the Alpha Complex. So what is Paranoia? Paranoia is a tabletop RPG set in a dystopian world ruled by an artificially intelligent and nearly omnipotent computer. The society itself is organized into a class structure organized by color, where you'll have the lowly reds down at the bottom all the way up to the violets at the top. Of course, ruling over it all is Friend Computer. Within this world, the reds, which are most commonly the player characters, are troubleshooters who will go out into the world, into the Alpha Complex, to solve the problems that Friend Computer deems necessary of handling. This can be something like fixing a refrigeration unit in subsector C27, or eliminating a hive of dangerous mutants. Or it could be simply delivering a package. Anything that Friend Computer deems necessary of doing is something that our Friend Computer could assign to our red troubleshooting team. And though your troubleshooter is likely to die during this mission, don't worry, because your clone comes equipped with a 6-pack, that's 6 lives, so that when your troubleshooter dies, one of his 5 remaining clones will pick right up where they left off. So what is Alpha Complex? Alpha Complex is a massive underground hive. It is tunnels running from one section to another, where these clones, these troubleshooters, will live out their entire lives in service of Friend Computer and their society. Friend Computer is, of course, the omnipotent artificial intelligence which directs the movements of these clones, directs the maintenance of the tubes, as well as the various loyalty enforcing measures done throughout it. Underneath Friend Computer, you have the 9 levels of clones. These levels are nicely organized by color. Thank you, Friend Computer. And of course, he decided to organize them according to the helpful Roy G. Biv. The color assigned to one's class indicates what they are allowed to access. So if you are a red level troubleshooter and you find a yellow room, you are not permitted to be there. And if you are found, you will surely be executed for treason. If, on the other hand, you are a green, you are allowed to access any rooms of red, orange, yellow, or green level. So before we tackle the Roy G. Biv classes, let's start at the very bottom. At the very bottom, we have the infrareds. Infrareds are the lowest of the low. They are allowed basically only their minimum requirements. They are kept drugged and easily manipulated in order to have them be the general workhorses of the Alpha Complex, the ones that are performing the most menial of tasks. Most people, when they enter Alpha Complex, will start as an infrared. Now, through great service or perhaps a lucky moment, these infrareds could earn promotion to red clearance level. Once they receive red clearance level, they are no longer drugged into submission. They're allowed some measure of autonomy. They are also then what is considered a troubleshooter. A troubleshooter is someone who works for Friend Computer in order to complete the tasks that a drugged up infrared probably wouldn't be able to complete. These tasks are the ones that are slightly more complex, where you cannot just send in a drugged clone to accomplish it. As such, they are allowed some measure more freedom than the infrareds. However, that freedom is not very widespread, as they are still considered one of the lowest of the low, and every single other rank greatly outranks them. Moving up from the reds, you have the oranges. For the most part, an orange is not much different from a red. They have little extra power compared to when they were a red, and in truth, it's very easy for them to then find themselves demoted back to red. So being in this precarious situation leads to oranges being a bit conniving, willing to take any chances to make sure that they are not sent back down to red and to claw their way further up the pyramid. Leaving the orange class, they move up to yellow. Yellows are the effective administrators of the lower tiers. Most of the ranks beyond yellow simply don't care about anybody lower than that rank. So this leaves the yellows in a position where they can easily control those lower masses, the infrareds, the reds, and the oranges. Of course, that authority only goes as far as someone of higher clearance level doesn't decide to step down and take a look at these lower masses, but of course, they have more important things to worry about, so most yellows are able to continue their running of the general workforce. And then moving up from yellow, you make your way into green. Green is the highest rank that most clones could possibly aspire to, and they know it. Once they hit green, they have basically everything that they could want. They have the wealth, they have the greater standing, and they don't have to do much work. Looking at our daily lives, they are the middle management position who has just enough authority to be able to make those lower individuals do all of the work that he is expected to do without having the additional responsibilities that upper management carries with them. All in all, they are looked down on in society by their higher ups. They serve a necessary purpose as a place to put those that are too well connected to fail. Stepping up from green, you'll find your way into the rank of blue. Blue, as you may guess, represents the security forces of Alpha Complex. These are quite often one of the highest rankings that a troubleshooter might interact with in a reasonable way. Being that they are in charge of security, they might be enlisting the help of red troubleshooters in order to get some extra manpower or meat shields for their next security assignment. These blues would be in charge of pretty much all of the security in Alpha Complex, and this leads them to having an unprecedented level of access to Alpha Complex. We then move up from the blues to the indigos. Indigos are the second highest rank of the normal clones within Alpha Complex, and they have a very interesting position. You see, the Indigos don't have a specific responsibility. Their job is simply to collect the reports from those lower and pass them to the Violets above them. So in effect, their job could easily be replaced at any moment by a simple email. And the Indigos work hard to hide that knowledge. If it were discovered by a Violet, then the Violets might very well disband the entire cast or simply demote them back down to blues or lower. So the Indigos work hard to maintain the image that they are working hard. And then finally, amongst the normal level of clones, we have the Violets. The Violets are the top of the top. They oversee the entire running of Alpha Complex, or that's what they would have you believe. In truth, the Violets are little more than the Indigos. The Violets serve a similar purpose, simply funneling information to the true rulers of Alpha Complex, the Ultraviolets. However, those Ultraviolets have decided to step back from society, leaving the Violets as the ones who appear to be in charge. As such, those Violets need to make sure that they're putting on a front, pretending to be the absolute authority and knowledge. Unfortunately, this leads to many mistakes as they claim knowledge in areas which they have none. That leads to immediate rash decisions, which become policy for the lower levels. And of course, above those Violets, we have The ultraviolets. The ultraviolets are a rank that is basically unknown in Alpha Complex. These are the high programmers. They are the ones who are tasked with keeping Friend Computer running. They are able to access Friend Computer's programming in order to keep him running smoothly and to perform necessary updates. Of course, when you have multiple high programmers running around Alpha Complex, they're going to have different goals. This leads to them reprogramming Friend Computer in different directions. Those different, often contradictory directions may have had some contribution to why Friend Computer is completely insane and unable to do its job correctly. Friend Computer was built to be the massive administrator of Alpha Complex. However, due to some failing, perhaps there is simply too much data going on in Alpha Complex for it to process it all correctly. Perhaps it's the differing updates from its multiple high programmers. Or perhaps it simply just wasn't meant to run this long, but for whatever reason, Friend Computer, and by extension the Alpha Complex, are failing. Friend Computer has begun to lose some of the illusion of control. Resources have run shy, sectors have begun to shut down, and in its paranoid delusion, it has begun to accuse secret societies, in particular the communists, of having sabotaged the Alpha Complex. This is because it cannot accept that it is simply failing at its job. In some sort of perverse bit of humor, Friend Computer's certainty that communists are acting to undermine the Alpha Complex has actually given birth to many secret societies. These secret societies might not have existed without the persecution of the failing Friend Computer. So in a way, Friend Computer has actually engineered its own failure. In truth, as your troubleshooters are going out into the world, Friend Computer is probably going to be your number one adversary, perhaps aside from your other players. Friend Computer exists to make the lives of the PCs harder. However, Friend Computer is not the only threat that your troubleshooters may face as they go out into Alpha Complex. First, of course, there are the secret societies mentioned. These secret societies operate behind the scenes in order to enact their own goals, which may run contrary to that of Alpha Complex. It is every troubleshooter's duty to undermine and destroy any secret society members that they may run across. Of course, each one of your troubleshooters is also a member of a secret society. These secret societies are something that you can create if you like, or you can use some of the official ones published by Mongoose as part of the rules. These secret societies can be anything, from the communists that Friend Computer so very much fears, or free enterprisers, which, despite being the very opposite of communism, are still hated and persecuted in Alpha Complex. There are, of course, the Frankenstein destroyers, which hate robots, and opposing them, the freaks, who believe that technological progress is what will save Alpha Complex. There are the Anti-Mutant League, who of course hate mutants with a passion, or Scion, who believe that mutants are the future. As you can see, there are plenty of secret societies to choose from, and they all run counter to each other, which leads to just more conflict within the party. Now, as mentioned, there are mutants within Alpha Complex. These mutants are normal clones for the most part. They just developed some kind of weird mutant power while they were being cloned. And of course, like with secret societies, all of your troubleshooters will be mutants. This means they best be careful about how they use their powers, or they may find themselves executed by their fellow troubleshooters. Now, while the threats that are available to Alpha Complex are only limited by your imagination, there is one more that bears mentioning in this video, and that are the Daves. These are deviant, artificially intelligent viruses. In effect, they are a virus that can infect Friend Computer. These can be a particularly troublesome enemy for your troubleshooters to face, as it can be very difficult to eradicate them, and should they not, they actually do pose a legitimate threat to Friend Computer and the Alpha Complex. They can be insidious, hiding in a vending machine, or they can be hiding in some massive cut-off sector within the Alpha Complex, building their own regime as a kind of mockery of Friend Computer. Either way, these can serve as a great antagonist for a mission or even a full campaign. Now, everything that I've discussed here is pretty much by the book's paranoia. This is how the book outlines it, and what you would expect to find in a paranoia game. However, one of the main hallmarks of paranoia is that your players should not know what is going on. For that reason, I'm introducing some variants here. You can take them and you can introduce them to your game in order to shake things up for your players that might have played Paranoia already, to give them a fully new experience. Now, these aren't required by any means. You, as a storyteller, can very easily inject your own life into the Alpha Complex in order to make it a unique experience without doing any massive changes to the setting. But these are three that I think have some good potential to tell some new stories and to get your players back on the wrong foot. First, consider having all of your players be registered mutants. This means that your mutant power is actually out in the open. Everybody knows that you are a mutant, and for that reason, because you are registered, you are not going to be executed on sight. Instead, Friend Computer has seen fit to allow you to live and to serve Alpha Complex, to use your mutant power for the betterment of Alpha Complex. With this kind of a premise, you can have a very different type of story, where the players aren't as worried about their treason level because they are already dead men as far as they know. This can lead to a kind of Suicide Squad type story where they're just going to go out and they're going to wreak havoc as they go out there with their death sentence mission. As the complete opposite side of that scale, consider running one where your players are not red level, but instead blue level. Blue clones have a very similar position in the Alpha Complex when considering what they are asked to do. They are the ones who are sent out to fix problems. They're just doing it with a higher clearance level and probably solving bigger problems. This actually gives the players a chance to have authority over other clones, which is something that they almost never have when they are red troubleshooters. This again brings in a fully new dynamic to the play. They're not as worried that they're going to step out of line and get executed for talking in a tone of voice that is insulting to an orange or a yellow, because those are now their inferiors. Those clones now need to answer to your players. But on the other hand, they are now scrutinized far more closely, so their shenanigans won't be tolerated as much. So they're going to really have to play things by the books, make sure that they are doing what is necessary in order to complete the mission in a timely and orderly manner. And in a place as chaotic as Alpha Complex, there is no way that they will be able to do that, so hilarity is bound to ensue. For either of these, I would probably recommend them as a one-shot type scenario, but you could easily adapt it into a campaign if you chose. On the whole, though, I find that campaigns of Paranoia are very hard to do right, at least more than a couple missions. Because of the lethality of the system, it makes it much more prone to shorter stories, and I think that either of these variants would be a good fit for that type of shorter narrative. Now, one that could fit well with a longer story is a Dave invasion. We talked about Daves as a kind of malevolent friend computer. What happens if that Dave actually makes it into Alpha Complex itself? Now you can have two friend computers running around giving orders to your players. What I would suggest is anytime that friend computer gets summoned, have a chance that it's going to be either the Dave or the actual friend computer. And then each of them are going to be approaching the situation that they're summoned into very differently. This leads to your players being completely paranoid every time that summoning happens, not knowing if it's going to be the Dave or the friend computer that shows up. And in some cases, they might rather it be the Dave. The Dave might enjoy watching them commit some treason and undermine Alpha Complex through their antics, whereas the Dave might actually frown upon the completion of the mission, and they may find themselves executed for treason for completing the mission successfully. This adds another layer of chaos and paranoia to a story that's building up, and I think that this could be very well suited to a campaign where the players are going to be interacting with each of these two versions of friend computer, seeing which one aligns with their personalities better, and you may even end up with a conflict within the party between some that like friend computer and some that like Dave. This is a good opportunity to end it with a massive civil war with an Alpha Complex, possibly pitting your PCs against each other to determine the fate of the Alpha Complex. And with that, this has been a quick rundown of the setting of Paranoia. Come back next time when we start the character creation process. Character creation is a very interesting topic in Paranoia, and I cannot wait to dive into that and give you some variants to shake it up again. So, please, if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more, drop us a like, give us a subscribe, or click that notification bell to be notified when we drop more videos. So until then, remember, there's gaming outside the Forgotten Realms.